Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and it's time once again to give you the top 10 best characters as recommended by me for each of the 10 existing CTPs, minus the CTP of Veteran because it's very rare to get, and I've never gotten my hands on one. So I'm just going to jump into this video. I'm not going to give you guys much preface. Of course, standard PSA, there is some preface. This is just my opinion. You're more than welcome to use CTPs however you like. I will still not be referring to or talking about reforged CTPs. We have now reforged energies, reforged regens, transcendences, and judgments. I won't be referring to those just because I haven't used them. I do have some in my inventory. I did do some reforging for fun during the 6-year anniversary because I was just having such a blast with the game. It was a 21% chance. It was a 1 in 5 to get a brilliant, which is actually pretty good odds. And I had a lot of inventory space that I needed to make. So I was like, you know what? Let me just make some inventory space. I don't need 13 greeds. I only need about 3. Anyways, I got unlucky, and I have those 4 there. I have never equipped them on a character. I've never used them, so I think it's fine that I have them there. I'll use them eventually, sure, but we have more ways than ever to get CTPs, so I think, you know, the adoption rate of those mighty and brilliant CTPs is going to increase as time goes on, and eventually when I feel comfortable, I'll maybe, you know, try them here and there, but, you know, I would never do a character review or any kind of showcase without letting you guys know ahead of time that that's what I was using, and I haven't used one yet for anyone. So anywho, let's jump right in. Now, we did one back in January. The game has changed quite a bit since then, especially when it comes to Judgment CTP, Energy CTP, Regen, and Rage. So those are the ones that I'm going to be focusing on. I'm going to leave them a little bit later in the video so I can get that juicy watch time because I want you guys to watch the whole video. But we're going to start off with Insight. Insight actually has not changed much at all. Most of the same characters that were really good for an Insight as support types are still really good for an Insight as support types. Now, basically, I'll list the 10 here. The only character that I would add to this list that isn't already here is maybe Star-Lord, because a lot of you guys have Star-Lord to get Beta Ray Bill, and then Star-Lord is just a leadership for World Boss Ultimate, World Boss Legend, ABX, etc. Star-Lord's not actually pulling his weight. Star-Lord's not bad for World Boss Null, to be honest. He's honestly not that bad. He's just missing a heal, but some of you might want to put an Insight on Star-Lord. So yeah, these 10 are basically still the best 10. There hasn't really been much change. I think I moved around a couple at the bottom and I made space. I deleted someone, I can't remember who it was, to make space. I think I deleted Shuri to make space for Thing. Now, of course, Thing, giving him an Insight only makes sense if you're going to be using Human Torch, because Thing is a really good support for Human Torch, or maybe for Maker, Mr. Fantastic. If you're not going to be using one of those 2 characters, then don't give Thing an Insight, because he doesn't have any passive benefits to give to any other characters besides the Fantastic Four. I guess maybe Crystal and She-Hulk and Moon Girl, if you want to use those old uniforms and those old characters. But yeah, that's a little bit of a far cry. So yeah, Insight really has not changed much. Besides the Defender-specific buffs, I guess you could say maybe an Insight on Jessica Jones, again, if you're going to run a Defender-specific team. But we've really only seen Jessica Jones and Thing emerge in the last 4 months as new support types. We haven't seen any other new support types. We haven't gotten any other support types being upgraded to Tier 3 or Transcendent. Invisible Woman doesn't really count. So moving on to the next one, we have a combo of the CTP of Patience and the CTP of Transcendence. Both of these CTPs, honestly, are not very worthwhile. I do not recommend equipping them on good quality, high-level characters. Not on Tier 3s, not on Transcendent characters. However, I do see it a lot. If you go through these rankings, a lot of characters have CTP of Transcendence as the 1, 2, or 3, and it breaks my heart. Stop doing that. It's not good. Anyways, the list is exactly the same. There's nothing to say. There, thankfully, no new characters have come out, and no characters have gotten uniforms that make them good for Transcendence or Patience. These are basically like the lowest tier of CTP. You know, you have your Ferraris, you have your Porsches, your, you know, whatever you want to call them. So you have your really fancy cars, your BMWs, your Rolls Royces, and then you have your budget cars, right? The Hyundai or Toyota or whatever. You know, you have your the Ford, whatever. You have your budget cars. These are your budget cars right here, okay? There's no change, thankfully. If there was change, it would be a bad sign for the game because it means we were getting bad characters, so to speak. So yeah, not much to say about Transcendence, and Patience is basically the same list. Up next, we have the CTP of Greed. Kind of like Transcendence and Patience, this is more of your budget CTP. I know some of you guys get these. A lot of you guys message me like, I have like 7 greeds and I don't know who to put them on, Alex. Come on, give me some answers. I don't have answers for you guys. There is no one that's good with a CTP of Greed that isn't better with any other CTP almost. Okay? So you can give a greed to Sentry if you want. You can give a greed to whoever you want. but you're not giving them the best or even the second best CTP. So you sort of just have to accept that. And I'm being a bit harsh here because I do still get this question like almost once a week, and it drives me up the wall because it's like people don't want to listen. I have greeds in my inventory. I have literally 1 greed equipped on any character. Jean Grey, that's it. And honestly, you could argue that I should take it off and give her a regen because she needs the regen to survive Sentry now. Anyways, the list is almost exactly the same. However, I will say this. I will make one argument in favor of the CTP of Greed. I have changed the list around slightly. I took off Ant-Man and somebody else, and I added Daredevil and Namor to the bottom of this ranking. And I did it because of dispatch missions. So in dispatch missions, you have a wide variety of enemy types. You have blast, speed, and combat. I don't know if you sometimes have universal, but you definitely have a mixture of blast, speed, and combat. If you bring in all universals, like if you bring in Odin, Loki, Ghost Rider, you don't have to worry because they deal more damage to all those suckers. But if you want to bring in characters who can still be really good for dispatch missions, like Namor with the group heat, with the group buffs, or Daredevil with just like really high damage and really high all defense down that applies instantly, then maybe a Greed is not so bad on them. Again, if you don't have a Rage or a Judgment for those characters and you really just want them for dispatch, might not be the worst use of your time. Namor's really not doing much outside of dispatch missions in the game right now as far as his value goes, but just keep in mind this is not the best option for these characters in almost every other scenario. Similarly, we see very little change, if any at all, in the CTP of Refinement. Thankfully, we haven't seen any characters. Well, actually, maybe not thankfully. Maybe we should see more characters coming out that have guard break immunity, so they don't need super armor, they don't need guard break immunity on an obelisk or on a CTP. But yeah, basically the only thing I did is I removed 2 of the characters at the bottom. Oh, sorry, not at the bottom. I removed Jessica Jones and Luke Cage because they're way better now and they deserve more than the shameful egg. And then I added in Rhino and Singularity. Singularity has guard break immunity, so she technically doesn't need it. But yeah, again, this is your bottom of the barrel basement CTP. This is riding a bike while your brother goes around driving a Mercedes. It's brutal. All right, so don't expect miracles here. It's not a good CTP. Now we come to one of the big guns here, the CTP of Judgment. We have seen a huge transformative influx of characters, both new and reworked via uniforms. Looking at you, Rogue, who are amazing with a Judgment, with a CTP of Judgment. When I say amazing, I mean better than a CTP of Rage. Yeah, so the devs have really made an effort to build characters that basically need this CTP rather than a Rage, because basically when the Judgment came out, the Rage had already come out, and people were looking at Judgment like, okay, it's basically like Rage, but not as good as Rage, because Rage buffs all of your damage rather than just the elemental damage, and Rage also gives you dodge and crit chance, which is offense and defense, and Rage just worked better at the time. This was before Pierce, this was before the value of chain hit damage, sure, but still. Right, and so people were like, okay, I could give them a Judgment, which is like the redhead stepsister or stepbrother of the Rage, right? It was still sort of like Rage number 1, Judgment number 2, but now they're neck and neck, and for a lot of characters, a lot of new characters, Judgment is just straight up better than Rage. Judgment is just straight up better than Rage for some of these new characters. So you definitely have to accept this new reality we live in. It's very cool, and I love it because it creates more parity. So now, you know, 6 months ago or even a year ago, maybe not. Oh, they came out a year ago. If you were to, you know, if you were to get a random CTP, you're like Rage or bust. It was literally just like Rage or bust, or like Rage or regen if you're a PvP player. There was 2 good CTPs and 8 bad ones. Now, Judgment is amazing. Regen is still good. Rage is still good. Energy is still good. You have like 4 or 5 really good really good CTPs. So they've really created a lot of balance. Anyways, here is the list of 10 characters. Rogue number 1 basically does not work with a Rage. She needs the Judgment. Sort of the same thing for Mephisto. Sort of the same thing for Human Torch. After those 3, you can get away with a Rage if you don't have a Judgment. You see those characters pop up again on the Rage list. Ghost Rider, Scarlet Witch, Professor X, Luna Snow. Beta Ray Bill is far down. I almost wanted to take Beta Ray Bill off the list because I hate how Beta Ray Bill plays without a CTP of energy, and he's so easy to use an energy with. But I'll still put him there because he's just an amazing elemental damage character. And then we have Apocalypse. And actually, Apocalypse should probably be above Beta Ray Bill, to be honest, because he's doing a lot of work in ABX with a Judgment. Dormammu, you could probably put somebody else there. It's not, you know, it depends. It really depends on what you need and what you have. Anyways, going on to the next one, we have Authority. Actually, the other funny thing is, we've been seeing the devs create and put more effort into creating characters that don't have invincibility penetration. And that's really important because they'll penetrate super armor, immunity, shield, barrier, but they will not penetrate invincibility. Like Luke Cage. Luke Cage is amazing for PvP now. I would argue he's the second best PvP character in the game, but he cannot penetrate invincibility. So if you have a CTP of Authority equipped on Silver Surfer, I hate you because it's so annoying to kill Silver Surfer with a CTP of Authority. And it's way easier to kill a Silver Surfer with my Luke Cage who has a regen. And I'm noticing that they're doing this with even more characters where they're giving them every single kind of penetration except for invincibility. So they're doing it on purpose to raise the value of Authority, and I wouldn't be surprised if this one gets a reforge next update or two, and it becomes a lot better. So we'll have to wait and see, but for now, the list has shaken up a little bit because we have seen some new players in the PvP meta, namely Luke Cage, Daredevil, now Mephisto, and to a lesser extent, I will acknowledge the value of Invisible Woman. I don't personally use her, but I have seen some video footage. She's not bad. And an Authority is pretty good. She doesn't have a lot of HP anyways, so it's not bad. So yeah, I will say that. Again, I think regen is better in almost all situations for most of these characters, especially the ones that have a large HP pool, especially for Hulk, for example, because he needs HP to do damage. But like Silver Surfer, Sentry, Jean Grey, because they revive as well, Mephisto. So more HP means more revive, like more when you revive, which means you're harder to kill. You got to take more damage, etc. But Authority's not bad. It's honestly not bad at all. I don't even know if maybe Mephisto doesn't have penetration. I actually just want to check here real quickly. I think maybe on his 5th skill, he doesn't have penetration of, oh no, it's on his 4th skill, I think. No, he does penetrate invincibility. Okay, it's somebody else that came out recently that has every kind of penetration, but they do not have invincibility penetration. Anyways, moving on to the next CTP, Destruction. Not much has changed here. However, I am going to put Vision at the second highest tier here, right under Captain Marvel. Now, Captain Marvel basically lost all of her value for ABX, so people are just stripping rages off her left and right. But she's still number 1. Just gonna put that out there. I put Vision number 2 because if you don't have a good obelisk for Vision and you can't give him a rage or an energy, okay, give him this. You're not gonna use the penetration because Vision is not the worst for PvP. Oh, I think it's Vision who doesn't have invincibility penetration on his 5th skill. I think it's Vision. Anyways, Vision is okay for PvP, but you're just giving him this because you can't roll a really good obelisk with crit damage and a damage proc. That's it. So for the vast majority of characters, if you're not using them for PvP and you give them a destruction, you're just giving them an obelisk that has crit damage, guard break immunity, and a damage proc. So this basically just takes the RNG out of wasting a bunch of obelisks, rolling them up, combining them up to 6 stars, and then not getting crit damage and a damage proc. That's all. That's really all a destruction is. There's some PvP characters here, but for the most part, yeah, this is a lesser CTP at this point. It basically needs a reforging if it's going to be any value, because it otherwise gets eclipsed by regens, authorities, rages, judgments, and energies. They're just straight up better for the 99.9% of characters in the game. Next up, we have energy, and this is the other big CTP that has changed dramatically, and the landscape of characters that use it has changed dramatically. So I'm going to throw up the list here. We still have Sharon and Moonstone number 1 and 2. Again, I say that these are the best characters to give a CTP of energy to. I'm also assuming these are the characters you have sort of in order. If you have Sharon and Null, who both need an energy, Null is stronger than Sharon, but Sharon needs the energy more than Null does because Null is just so strong, right? So if you wanted to give the energy to the best character, then Null would be number 1. But giving it to Sharon makes a bit more sense because Null can make do with an obelisk, whereas Sharon is not really going to perform very well with an obelisk. I mean, she's going to perform okay, but she's going to reach her full potential a little bit closer to max with an energy than Null will. Well, you kind of get what I'm saying. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically, Null is just really good even with no obelisk. That's sort of the point, or no CTP. But yeah, we've got newcomers on the list here: Gambit, Cable, and then I bumped down a bunch of guys. I bumped Sentry way down because I don't know. I feel like he's much more PvP centric now. He's been outclassed in PvE by both of the native tier 3s, Null and now Mephisto. So he's sort of building his niche as the PvP god here. And then another newcomer, Iron Man. Really, really good. You could swap, or you could argue that Vision should be there instead of Iron Man. I think Iron Man has an easier rotation with an energy than Vision does, so I prefer Iron Man to Vision, but they're both quite good with an energy, and they can both definitely make it work. For Cable, keep in mind that it can be both uniforms for Cable. It can be Kid Cable, or it can be Summer Days Cable. For Kid Cable, a Rage also works. For Summer Days Cable, you want to just stick with an energy altogether. Up next, we have Regen before our last CTP, which is going to be Rage. So the top 10 for Regen hasn't changed much, but like the CTP list for Authority, it has changed because we've got new players in PvP, new CTP players in PvP. So Luke Cage makes his debut here at 2nd place, and I think he definitely deserves it. Daredevil's also there over at 8th place. He's also very good. Mephisto is 5th. Not a lot of people are running Mephisto in PvP, but he is good when you do run him in PvP. Hulk takes a huge drop, mainly because of the existence of Luke Cage. Jean actually goes up because she basically needs a Regen now to hang with the big boys and tank their damage. And then Null is there as well because, to be honest, I didn't have a better option for 10th. There's very few characters that are used in PvP for the general, like 99% of players. So the rotation of characters is really tight. Null is probably the 9th or 10th best option anyways for Regen if you're going to go that way for PvP and Alliance Conquest. And then actually Molecule Man moved up quite a bit because he's really good. Yeah, he's just a solid character. And then last but not least, we have the CTP of Rage, the former best CTP in the game, now possibly tied for 2nd or 3rd place. I'm not sure. It might be Energy 1st, Judgment 2nd, Rage 3rd. This is pretty awkward. Rage is still the same in the sense that the characters that need it really need it. And the best way that I can explain our CTP of Rage is characters who don't do elemental damage and have a weird rotation need a Rage. So the two poster childs for a Rage are Odin and Doctor Strange. Now, I put Doctor Strange 4th instead of 2nd because although he really needs a Rage and he can't make do with anything else, he has lost value in the game. So that's why I put Ghost Rider and Luna up there. They can work with a Judgment, whereas Doctor Strange can't, but they're just much better than Doctor Strange for endgame content, ABX, Squad Battle, World Boss Legend, you name it. They're going to outclass the Doctor. So that's why I moved him down. But in terms of, it's Rage or Bust for the build at tier 3, Odin's number 1, Doctor Strange is number 2. There's no argument about that. So keep that in mind and sort of be aware of that. Professor X is another one where he can make it work with the Judgment, but a Rage is also really good for him. So you sort of have to decide on what you want and what you need and what you have. Sentry is there because I know a lot of you don't care about PvP, and that makes sense. So you give him a Rage, he can dominate PvE content. You don't have to worry about a rotation with energy, and you don't have to worry about annoying procs because Sentry is kind of annoying to play with an energy. And then he can still slap, and he can still win 70-80% of the time in PvP because that's just how Timeline Battle works. It's either really hard or it's really easy. There's no in between. And then newcomers to the list, the bottom 4, all brand new, baby. Scarlet Witch, Vision, Thor, and his brother Loki. Very interesting choices there. Loki, basically, he's another poster child like Odin and Doctor Strange. He's not going to work with an energy because his rotation is so weird. He can't work with a Judgment because he has one elemental skill, and it's his first skill, which does the least damage, so that's not going to work. So weird rotation, no elemental damage, needs a Rage. That's how it goes. Vision is kind of the same way, but he can work with an energy. Scarlet Witch and Thor are a little bit more interesting. Again, they can work with a Judgment, but I think Thor has a pretty weird rotation, and Rage helps him with the dodge because he doesn't necessarily rack up as many chain hit damage attacks as you would like. It fluctuates. Sometimes he does a lot of chain hit if you can do 3, 5, 6, 4 or whatever. Sometimes he doesn't really have that many chain hit damage attacks to rack up and to link together. And then Scarlet Witch has a little bit. She's 35, I think, mind damage already on her passive. So she can already bump up her elemental damage a little bit. That's why I think you can get away with a Rage and you don't necessarily need to have a Judgment, but they can both work. So with that being said, I have now run through all 10 CTPs. I've just given you 100 character suggestions. That's 10 characters for 10 CTPs. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think down below in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, and happy Mother's Day.